Hello again. In this set of notes, we are going to take a look at the benefits of biodiversity. So you've probably heard me say before, it's really important that we have a high number of biodiversity. But it's probably like, well, why does that matter? That's what we're going to look at today. So for this one, the big thing is we're going to be looking at the 4 categories of ecosystem services, and we'll talk about what that is in a second. But that's preserving, regulating, cultural, and supporting. And then also looking at how anthropogenic, so us human-based activities, can disrupt ecosystem services and potentially resulting in economic or ecological consequences. So again, looking at both the ecological side and the economic side and putting it together. So ecosystem services are naturally occurring actions that humans benefit from. So knowing that that's our definition for ecosystem services, what I want you to do, and it says in tables and groups, but obviously you can't do that. So by yourself, I want you to take a second and come up with as many ecosystem services as you can. Try to time yourself, take about 2 minutes, try to think as many as you can, and then put that into the Edpuzzle post. So our types of ecosystem services, I mentioned these before, but we have preserving. So these are material goods produced or provided by a functioning ecosystem. Cultural, so these are non-material benefits provided by functioning ecosystems. Regulating, so benefits available as a result of regulation in the ecosystem. Excuse me. And support, services that are required for production of all other ecosystem services. So they kind of interweave with one another, especially with support, because support is kind of holding up the rest of those 3. This is actually a pretty good graphic and good way to look at it. So it gives you some examples. So like in preserving services, so that could be things like energy, seafood, biomedical. Then you have cultural, which would be like education and recreational. So some of you probably put things like parks down as some of your ecosystem services, and that would fall under things like cultural. Or regulating, so this would be like, how do we deal with some of the stuff that's going on? So this could be things like building dams, making sure that erosion control so that we're not losing extra land is taken care of. Controlling pests, so dealing with invasive species would fall under regulating services. And then supporting would be things like making sure that diversity or biodiversity is maintained in an area and things like nutrients are getting to where they need to be. So now, like I said, you should have that list. If you can't remember it, make sure that you go back to it, because what I want you to do is take a second and organize, the services that you brainstormed according to the categories that we just saw. So put them in if they're preserving, if they're cultural, if they're supportive, or if they are regulating. So put it into one of those 4 categories. Now I want you to hypothesize. So I want you to try to come up with a human activity that can disrupt each of the services that you brainstormed. So if you said something like a national park, what type of human activity could possibly disrupt that service or cause an issue with that service? And like I said, discuss how can that disruption have a broader, well, think of it bigger. How does that have a broader effect on the ecosystem function and on our own society? Excuse me, cannot talk today. So summary. We want ecosystems with high biodiversity because they're going to allow us or give us more of those ecosystem services. The higher the biodiversity, the greater those ecosystem services that we can receive. And another thing is with those high biodiversity is if we have a place that has high biodiversity, if some kind of human or other disruption happens, they're going to be more resistant to that disruption and not just get wiped out all in one go. And once that disruption happens and is gone, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to actually be able to recover. So they're going to be more resilient and more able to kind of roll with the punches if something like that happens. But yeah, that'll do it for this set of notes. See you next time.